Alright, welcome back to How to Build an F-14 Tomcat. We're still Sunday, and here I am with another video, so I kept up for you guys on that one. Basically what I've got here is I came out about 2 afters after I laid up this stuff, and the resin had gone green enough to where I just went ahead and trimmed the layup down to size. In order to do that, I had to peel this peel ply away because it doesn't cut quite as well as the green cloth and resin mix. But here you see I've got it trimmed down. I just took a straight edge razor blade and went around it. Peel ply, see I got it overhanging, that way you can grab hold and pull. This stuff isn't completely cured, it's still a little tacky, but it's cured enough to where you can pull this peel ply off and your layup still stays inside the mold and it doesn't want to move. So it's now about 8:30, almost 9 o'clock. So it's been about 6 or 7 hours since I did this, I guess. So I just peel that peel ply off and trash that, and you're left with it's really hard to tell in the video, but basically you're left with a ready to bond surface. Technically now you should just be able to literally glue anything in there without having to do any sort of sanding or cleaning or anything. Sometimes, especially with that stuff, it's really tight. It's really tight weave and tightly knit, so you don't get a really rough surface. So I typically go in with some 80 grit paper and a little bit of acetone and clean it up and make it a little rougher, especially if you're doing any sort of structural stuff like firewall bulkheads or anything. I'm gonna take that same straight edge razor blade, just go around the edge a little bit of it and trim up a few places, that mostly on the corners where it was being a little difficult. But that little peel ply trick you can even use when you're doing just fiberglassing a balsa surface. That works extremely well. I do it pretty much every time I fiberglass something. I use that stuff because, man, it really knocks down on the amount of sanding you have to do. To where I can literally do an 80-inch wingspan like Warbird or something, like a Focke-Wulf P-51. You can do it in just like a day or two for the whole airframe. Alright, now I'll fill this away, trash that. I'm going to leave the peel ply and the exhaust nozzle in there until it's fully cured. Just because I don't have to bond it, I'm not worried about it. It'll peel out a little harder than what this stuff did, just because it's going to be fully cured, but it still peels out just as well. You just got to put a little bit more muscle into it. What I'm doing now is I'm just going around on the flange, and anywhere there's a little bit of glue that or epoxy that had kind of worked its way over, I'm just removing those areas. That way the mold flanges will clamp together nice and tight. Grab a clamp or two, or 3. Alright, some C-clamps. I've already got my fiberglass strips cut. They're, I don't know, they're about 2 inches wide, I guess, 1.5 inches. Nope, right at 2 inches wide. And what I'm going to do is when I go to put these together, I'm going to put resin on both sides of these. Put resin here all along the the joint, and then you're gonna put the cloth on, say, the bottom of this part and the top of this one. So when you go to put it together, the cloth on this side is overlapping inside of here, and the one on here is overlapping on the inside of this one. So you can just kind of bring them in here, kind of staggered like this, and then bring them together. And then once they get in there, you clamp them together. Then you can go down through there with your chip brush and just run it right down the seam. So that's the plan with that. There's still a few little parts in here that are kind of a little higher than I want them, but so I'll go ahead and trim those down just a tiny bit more. Alright, there's that. Find some resin and a little bit of hardener to go along with it. If you're wondering how much material I've used, I have just now finished the first gallon of the surfacing resin. So basically, out of that 1 gallon of surfacing resin, I got both vertical fins, both horizontal stabs, both flaps, a rudder, over the overwing fairings, the nose cone, the canopy mold, the vacuum form canopy plug, and the windscreen plug mold. I got all of that stuff done. And I mean, that's 15 molds or so. And the exhaust nozzle. So I got right at 15 to 16 molds done off 1 gallon of that stuff. So it goes a really long way. Now the laminating resin, unfortunately, I think I've gone through like 5 gallons of that. So I fully expect to go through it at least another 1.5 gallons on just the wing panels, and probably a good 7 gallons on the fuselage. So we'll see how that goes. Alright. Gotta zoom you fellas out. And the ladies, can't forget about the ladies that are out there watching. If there are any. If there are, say hello. And like Bob's saying, feel free to click on the ads. Every time y'all click on them, it helps get this thing going a little bit further, a little bit faster. I mean, I'm just a one-man show, working full-time job and taking care of a newborn. So every little bit of change helps. I'm gonna mix up 40 grams of resin right now, and what that'll do is that'll give me enough to get these mold halves taped together, and it'll also give me a little bit of resin left over so I can fill in the bottom of it down there with the cotton flock resin mixture. Now, the more I use this stuff, I've noticed that they start to short you a little bit of hardener Like I've still got, I don't know, probably another 100 grams of resin in there, but I've had to open up the hardener from a second thing of hardener. So by the time I come down to the end of it, I'm probably going to be short a pint, maybe a pint and a half of hardener compared to what I should have gotten. All right. And for putting that resin down, I'm just going to use an acid brush instead of one of those big tip brushes. So I'm going to paint the resin here on both of these joining edges of these layups. I'm going to take it a little further out than where I think the edge of the tape would be. Just so I don't have to try and get down in there with this brush and get where I miss. And later on, I'll actually get actual fiberglass tape to use for this process instead of just a strip cut from a big sheet of it. It just looks a little nicer, a little more professional, because you get a nice even edge instead of something that's going to fray on you. Alright, so there's that. I'm going to take my little strips here. You can see I cut a little point there at the end, just so it gets fairly far down in there in the nose portion. Then the other one is going to go on the top of the other side. Trim the tape down a little bit. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and, while I can get down in there, I'm going to make sure this stuff is put down and saturated real well. Alright, now, so just gonna see how this works out. It may or may not. There we go. Clamps, go around and get this thing clamped down nice and tight. I'll go down in there with this chip brush and just smooth the cloth out across it. I can't really see what I'm doing, but I'll show you when I'm done. It's a privilege of working with big airplanes. You can actually get your hand down in there and do what you need to as far as work goes. All I'm doing now is just going down in there and getting that strip of fiberglass saturated really well. Probably wondering why I'm not using any carbon fiber on this part. It's not gonna be holding anything of substantial weight. It's basically just gonna be a cover for the front of the nose, and there'll actually be, depending on what needs to be up front for weight and balance, I'll probably just have a couple batteries up there and make it kind of like an access point to do all your fueling and air system, battery charging, on-off switch, all that stuff. So because of that, I don't need anything really strong material wise in the front of this thing to make it work out. So fiberglass is perfectly fine to do that job. And I'm a JR Spectrum guy, so personally I like the whole remote receivers and the multiple ones they have. So I'm actually going to have one at the very front of this thing to get it as far away as everything as possible, since most of the time the airplane's pointed towards you at some point in time. It's a good place to have an antenna, and any carbon fiber will potentially block the reception from the transmitter. So if you just limit the amount of carbon fiber, or in this case none at all, you don't have to worry about that issue. Now I know there's probably somebody out there thinking I should go to Futaba, but JR has treated me right. I can't say the same about Futaba, so we all have our own preferences. Alright, so now looking down in there, you can see we got the whole thing. Well, you probably can't see much because there's no light, but stand it up, you can see the tapes down in there, sort of. Sorry for the light, I know. the new shop will be much better. But now that I've got that done and joined, I'm going to take what little epoxy is left, and I'm going to mix some cotton flock in there with it. Not a lot, just enough, if you know what enough means in this case. And I want this stuff to be I want it to flow, but I don't want it to be really watery, because then it could, if there's any sort of gap in there between the mold halves, which there shouldn't be, but there's the possibility, it could run down in there and just make for a heck of a time to get it out. So if you see right now, I mean, it kind of sticks, but it runs. That's pretty close. I'm going to put just a little bit more cotton flock in there just to thicken up a tiny bit more. To kind of, not quite peanut butter, probably like a molasses consistency. Looks about right. So now you can see slightly thicker than molasses. Get to where I can actually see the screen, make sure y'all can see what I'm showing you. There you go. See, it kind of runs and drops. So now I'm just going to take the mold, stand it on end, take a big glob of this, and drop it right down there towards the nose. And another reason why I'm doing this little glob is I plan to have there's a little pitot tube type deal on some of the F-14s, possibly all of them, I can't remember right now, that it's kind of like a pitot tube, and by having this little glob in there, that gives you a really nice thick area to drill down into to support that little tube, which will also do double duty in holding the nose cone on. Then I'm just going to take a little patch of cloth here, put it in the end of some super long hemostats. And put it down in there. And that's going to kind of help act like a plug to hold all that cotton flock mixture and epoxy and all that stuff down in there. Alright, if y'all can see down in there, which is doubtful. Well, if you could see down in there, you'd see the little plug in the and the fiberglass and the little mixture of stuff down in there. But for those of you who are paying attention on the boards, I'll have a picture of that. For those of you who aren't, sorry. So now, in order to let this cure, I'm just gonna stand it vertical up here in the corner of the bench. Leave it there for probably until tomorrow afternoon. Then come tomorrow afternoon, I will come out here and trim up these molds, pop these two apart. I'll get you guys a video on that, I promise. And maybe if I can talk the wife into it, I'll try and get the parting planes for one of the wing panels built and get one of those things molded this week. Should be awesome, but no no promises. So until tomorrow afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, have a good evening, and we'll see you Monday.